Moving deeper into the Naruto series, we now reach what would be the Shippuden Era of Naruto. With Sasuke having left the village, our little OC is feeling very sad. But that doesn't mean that he's lost all hope. No sir, Ethan isn't just gonna roll over. He's gonna train in preparation for bringing Sasuke back. But unbeknownst to him and the rest of the team, there's a darkness brewing in the Shinobi World. The question is, can Ethan grow strong enough to overcome? Or will he fail? Welcome to the Amagi. Before we begin, only 25% of our viewers are subscribed. So if you're a fan of the video, please like and double check if you are subscribed. And with that out of the way, let's get into the video. I was laying in bed. It was about 8 AM. Despite that, I hadn't slept at all. Naruto was released the day he was brought in due to his tailed beast healing any possible wounds. He was as healthy as could be. I too had been released, but I was just so sad. I had given Sakura Sasuke's necklace to help console her, but I have to admit I'd never seen her cry that much. I'd gone home that night to sleep, but despite everything I tried, I just couldn't. My mind couldn't remove itself from Sasuke and his departure. Sasuke was one of my closest friends. I thought back to our time in the Chunin exams, our time facing off with Haku and Zabuza, how he had brought me something to eat after Dosu attacked me, how we'd played Alien vs Predator. I recalled how he took wounds for me, how I nearly died for him, and yet he threw all of that away. Me, Sakura, Naruto, he threw all of us away, and that hurt so bad. Besides these thoughts, I couldn't even get Kimimaro out of my head. I wasn't trying to be a wuss about it, and indeed, I did know what I was getting into. I knew that joining a military force, there was a chance I'd have to kill someone someday. But even still, it hurt to know that I actually did have to do it. I had blood on my hands. Those thoughts were driving me insane. Tossing and turning all night, TV on, TV off, snack, milk, open curtains, closed. I tried everything I could to clear my mind, but it refused. So I just laid there until well into the morning. I didn't have anywhere to go, so I told myself that if I could only get to sleep now, I'd sleep until at least 2 PM. But that time never came. As I lay there, the sound of birds outside my window reminding me that it was time to get up, I was startled by the sound of a doorbell. Not even caring that I was still wearing my Goku pajamas, I went to the door and opened it. What is it? It was Naruto and Jiraiya. Hey Ethan, can we come in? They asked. I looked back at my bed and weighed my thoughts on whether I'd be able to go back to sleep or not. Deciding it was probably out of the cards for me, I opened up the door and let them in. They stepped in just as I was turning on the light. Oh, I hope we didn't wake you, Jiraiya said. I shook my head. Nah, you're good. I was just getting up to get breakfast anyway. Oh, can we join you? Naruto asked. I waved around myself. Free country. They stepped in and sat down. They were excited to see what kind of delicious meal I would share with them. I'd plop down a Pop-Tart on each of their places before opening one up for myself. Naruto and Jiraiya looked at each other and then down at the Pop-Tarts. Naruto sniffed his. Ooh, s'mores. We began to eat. Jiraiya looked around. So tell me, how have you been holding up? I shrugged. That bad, huh? Naruto said. Jiraiya kicked Naruto into the table, to which Naruto let out a muffled ouch. Jiraiya looked at me. I know it's tough. You lost a lot of friends. Shikamaru, Kiba and his dog, Sasuke, and then you had to take your first life. I sat there looking at Jiraiya. Thanks for reminding me, pervy sage. That's the thing though, Ethan, Jiraiya said. You shouldn't keep thinking about these things. Halfway through my second Pop-Tart, I took a swig from my juice box. I know that, Jiraiya, but you can't afford a guy at least 24 hours to grieve. I know I gotta move on eventually, but is right now really that time? Listen, kid, you never truly move on when people you love leave. But the longer you dwell on it, the more it hurts. And I highly doubt any of your friends would want you torturing yourself over something they all decided to do on their own. That's why I came to invite you to something. Invite me to something? Invite me to what? I asked. Jiraiya and Naruto looked at each other with a smile. If it's another bathhouse. No, Jiraiya said, cutting me off. Me and Naruto are going out into nature. We're gonna train at my place. Since you and he don't really have any immediate responsibilities, I thought maybe you could join us. I thought about it. Well, I kinda do have responsibilities. I'm a genin now. Jiraiya shook his head. Nope, I already asked Kakashi. He said you and Naruto are free. Heck, he even tried to push Sakura off on me too, but she didn't want to come. Said she had other plans for training. So at this point, your only responsibility is to get as strong as you possibly can. And trust me, I think I can help you. I think about it. I look back at my bed, my mostly dark room, and down at my plate. Honestly, I had nothing better to do, and considering that I'd be doing it alone, that was probably going to be a lot of moping, and I decided it'd be better to try, to take my mind off my troubles and make something better of myself. So even though I was in no mood to say yes, I said yes anyway. Jiraiya told me to gather some things I would need, anything I didn't think I could live without, as he didn't know how long it would be until we came back, so I grabbed some things I knew I'd need. Some video games, a couple books, a buttload of manga, and a little plush fox named Tenku, a treasure given to me by someone very dear. Changing into something better to wear, we hit the bricks and began making our way out toward the endless horizon. Traveling through the woods, over the hills, past towns, and all manner of things, I began to realize why it was such a bad idea not to sleep before a big trip. Reaching Jiraiya's house, I explained my situation, and he understood. Said that we needed to get adjusted anyway, so he made a quick meal for us, gave me first use of the bath, and then let me hit the hay. The sun hadn't even set yet, but screw that, I was sleeping. And I planned to do it for close to 14 hours. I slept hard, though my dreams were every so often plagued by nightmares, but I never woke up once, and instead gained a sort of lucidity that allowed me to change my dreams however I desired. The next day came, and I woke up starving. Getting up, I changed into my better clothes and journeyed into the kitchen to find Jiraiya with a fresh pot of coffee and some breakfast. Opting instead for juice, I sat down, said a blessing, and proceeded to eat the ham dog out of some bacon, eggs, and rice. Once I was finished with that, I looked up at Naruto and Jiraiya. "So, what's the plan today?" Jiraiya smiled nefariously. He took us out and proceeded to train us hard, working us to the bone. The way we trained was intense, but logical. He would have us build up our muscles one day, that being heavy physical training, and then he'd give us a day to study various techniques and our chakra control. This went on for a while until we reached the proper physical aptitude. Our bodies were strong, and because of that, our chakra had also seen quite the increase in power. But that wasn't the end of it. No, it was but the beginning. We were still young, Naruto being only 12, I a year older. We had yet to truly tap into the true growth potential in our bodies, so as we reached a good place in our practices, things got switched to keep our muscles off guard. We ended up doing our workouts backwards. Then after we got used to that, we did our workouts first and last, second and second last, third and third last, and then when that finished, we got a brand new set to do. I thought I was gonna die. Some nights and some mornings I wished that I had, but Jiraiya, as tough as he was, kept our spirits up with jokes and with his smile. To be frank, if one forgot that he was a womanizing old bastard who peeped on girls in the bathroom, you might find him to be the wisest sage of them all. But it seemed the Roshi trope was alive and well. Eventually, he began to teach Naruto how to control his Nine-Tails chakra better. And given that Naruto was learning something powerful and I wasn't, Jiraiya decided to teach me something as valuable as the various cloaks that Naruto was working on. Perhaps something even better. Sage Mode. He introduced to me the concept of senjutsu, something that I had hardly read anything on. But considering what he was saying, it all started to make sense. He said that considering the chakra control I had naturally received from my time practicing my crystal release, that it made me more likely not to fail. That being said, he told me not to get a big head because the consequences for failing were fatal. So I decided to follow my mentor's words and not allow myself to be compromised by my natural abilities. I managed to complete my training of Sage Mode, especially when Fukasaku and Shima got involved, but sadly, Naruto couldn't. Instead, Naruto could only perfect his version 1 cloak, as his version 2 cloak was as dangerous for Naruto as it was for everyone else. That landed Naruto and Jiraiya in the hospital. While they were resting though, I kept up my training with Fukasaku and Shima, and even developed a close relationship with them. They were so kind and wise, they reminded me of grandparents, and so when I told them that I had none, the first thing they wanted to do was forge a contract with me. As the contract was written up, they told me that no matter where I was or what I was doing, if I ever needed them, they could call me with this. All they needed was for me to put a smudge of blood down to call them. So I nicked my thumb with a kunai and added my blood to the contract. Pleased with it, Shima took my hand and told me that this made us blood relatives now. I won't lie, I cried. I cried a lot. To finally have real family was, well, it was awesome. Not to say that Team 7 wasn't my family, but Fukasaku and Shima were both officially my grandparents. This contract was a proof of our bond. Essentially, adoption papers and proof that they wanted me. This technically made Jiraiya an uncle to me, and Naruto a cousin. So in the span of a single moment, I went from having no family to a full family. It made me so happy. But as time passed, I grew and my strength increased. I honed my crystal release, being capable of new techniques and forming even more complex structures. I practically mastered Sage Mode to the point that I no longer even needed to worry about having webbed feet, though Jiraiya had taught me that there were some merits to using the imperfect variant. Words I kept close. But in what seemed like the blink of an eye, 2.5 years passed. Naruto was 16 now, and I was 17. Returning to the village, I was certain we could pass for Jonin now. Meeting back up with Sakura, we had the time of our lives. Kakashi would even seek to test us out, to see how far we had gotten in our training. And while it was high diff, we managed to beat him, proving to our most elite of mentors that we had indeed grown into fine shinobi. We enjoyed our time back by going out to dinner, all of us, and having a good catch-up. We learned that Sakura too had been receiving training from Tsunade, and now was more than just a powerful medical nin, she was a strong warrior in her own right, whose physical strength had far surpassed what was normal naturally. Her raw physical strength even seemed to surpass mine and Naruto's amazingly. That was something that sort of freaked us both out, considering that she was the scariest thing we'd seen up to that point. We had come to know her temper, and now with the strength to split stone, our poor noggins stood no chance. But as life went on, we were informed that the Akatsuki, a group I had only just heard about, had killed an old monk, and others had sought help from us. So Tsunade began putting together a team of 20. There was a spot open, as Asuma didn't have Shikamaru to take along with him. Considering who to add to the team, I volunteered. Asuma at first refused, as I wasn't a Chunin, which would usually make it against the rules, but Tsunade, under Jiraiya's recommendation, said that she would make an exception for the genin trade by Jiraiya and herself, declaring us the next generation of Sannin. With that said, Asuma agreed. Giving me a flak jacket, I dressed up in my true shinobi attire. I finally felt like I was going places in my life, and slowly achieving my dreams. But of course, my high was about to become a devastating crash. I witnessed the strength of the Akatsuki, Hidan and Kakazu. They must have smelled my fear a mile away because they really started slathering on the occult and horror. Despite my best attempts, I could not save Asuma. I watched him die, bleeding out in front of me. I wasn't a healer. Panicking, I tried to staunch the bleeding. As I was hyperventilating, Asuma reached out to calm me. He told me that it was okay, that this was the cost of being a shinobi, killing and being killed. He asked me to light a cigarette for him. Pulling one from the blood-stained pack, I took his lighter and lit it. Taking one puff to get it started, I coughed from the unusual smoke, something that brought Asuma a pained cough. "It's not for everyone, kid." I put it in his mouth. He took a drag and let it out. He told me to give Kurenai his love. I asked what that meant and was told that they were in a relationship. I tried to be strong, but found it hard, knowing that I was going to have to inform a woman that the love of her life was dead. I nodded my head. "I'll tell her." He thanked me. He persisted for only a few moments more before joining his father, Hiruzen, in the afterlife. I felt so weak. Despite everything I had trained for, there were just some people I couldn't beat. What was I supposed to do in the face of true immortals? Hidan? Kakazu? Whatever false god Hidan served had somehow bestowed upon him true, undying immortality. I had no clue how to beat that. Returning to Konoha, I knocked on Kurenai's door. I held Asuma's headband and one of his bladed knuckle dusters. She opened up. As soon as she did, I saw that she was pregnant, and despite it being my duty, I broke down again into tears. A baby was going to grow up without knowing its father, and a woman was going to have to raise that child as a single mother. Immediately, Kurenai knew what had happened. I tried to comfort her, but at that point, there was hardly any comforting me, so we just cried together, which was the best we could do to help each other. But after that, I informed Kakashi about how weak I was feeling. Kakashi spoke. "I'm sorry you feel that way. But growing is something that's never finished. So long as you live, you learn. So long as you fight, you grow stronger. I've sent Naruto out to start trying to make a new technique. These Akatsuki members are nothing to sneeze at, it seems. Rumors say 2 of them just tracked down and captured the regenerated One-Tail. That, and now the death of Asuma, they're public enemy number 1. And the only way for us to defeat them is if we bring everything to the table. And so, Naruto and I would meet up by a waterfall. I asked him what he was going to try and do. He said that he was naturally very good with wind release, and Jiraiya told him the Rasengan was incomplete. He told me that he wanted to add a nature to the Rasengan, and that he planned to make it wind release. I decided to try and help him, although I felt that if wind release could be added, maybe something else could too. So I began working on adding my crystal release. Well, adding is a strong word. I ended up forming a new jutsu that didn't exactly add crystal release to it as much as I added a Rasengan to crystal release. I know that sounds like a real potato-potato situation, but trust me, it's different. And it was far easier for me to apply than it was for Naruto. Essentially, I would create a large crystal construct around my hand and then form a Rasengan within it. I would try expanding the Rasengan as the crystal tried to keep it contracted. I learned that if I kept funneling more and more chakra into the Rasengan until it popped inside of the construct, it would be ejected out of the tip, amplified by the precise cut of the gem, and be released into a blast of pure chakra. The denser the chakra, the more energy I could put into it, along with the shape of the construct changing the way that it was fired or the caliber of the weapon. I called it Crystal Release Rasen Rifle. The biggest issue was that it took a lot of chakra to use, and if I added too much, I would at best case overextend myself, and at worst case, I could actually die. So I had to be careful. We were then informed that the location of Hidan and Kakuzu had been confirmed and that we were to find and kill them. So Naruto and I mobilized. Both Naruto and I raced up to the front lines to help in the battle against Hidan and Kakuzu. Naruto said we should split up to help even the chances that our side might take out both Akatsuki members. I agreed to this, but then requested the chance to take out Hidan. Naruto looked at me. "Are you sure you want to do that?" he asked. "Hidan did kill Asuma in front of you. Are you in the right mindset?" I nodded. Hidan killed Asuma, but that shouldn't affect the state of things. He's a killer, and whether or not he'd killed Asuma in front of me or not, he needs to see justice. I think I have a chance to do that. "Okay then, but be careful. He has some funky powers, I hear." I hugged Naruto. Naruto was surprised by this. Ethan? Ethan? Honestly, I hadn't said anything, but I was terrified. If for some reason my technique didn't work or I missed, chances are I would be killed. I had to play this perfectly or I would die. And if I died, I didn't want Naruto to walk away without knowing how much he meant to me. Perhaps Naruto knew that too. I felt him soften his posture and wrap his arms around me too. "We'll see each other again. Later on, when this is over, we'll celebrate with some ramen, on me." I pat his back and pulled away. "Sounds like a deal." Giving him a two-finger salute, I turned and began to leave. Making my way toward where the battle against Hidan was taking place, I got there just in time to see him finish off the last of the Konoha nin who stood against him. Strong and powerful chunin, each of them eradicated, like they were nothing. He stood there with only one sleeve on, skin black as pitch, with only bone-like markings running across their surface. He held in his hand a bloody scythe that I could tell had been used to kill those around him. He turned and looked at me with a smile before speaking. "Ah, another sacrifice to the great and powerful Jashin," he said, licking the blood from his scythe. He approached me, his head turning to the side. "Do I know you from somewhere?" he asked. I got into a fighting stance. Realization hit him as he smiled and nodded, as if it were something easy to place. Pointing to me, he said, "I remember you. You're that kid from the last squad I dismembered. I can tell by the way you shake." Hidan looked around. "Wow, you have really bad luck. Every hunting party you join gets killed. It's like you're cursed or something." I slapped my cheeks, trying to mentally prepare myself. I realized from the last battle that he can only cast his hex if he draws blood. To that end, I coated myself in crystal armor, something to protect myself. I then created a lance in my hands made of crystal as well. "Surely he won't just stand there and take it," I said within myself. "I need to wear him down, make him think I can't do much against him, and then surprise him with it." I circled around him. He didn't move, only smiling as his eyes followed me. The moment I got behind him, he jumped straight up into the trees where he hung like a bat. "That armor makes you tough, sure, but it has a con." He paused for effect, as if allowing me to bathe in the terror of the mystery of my weakness. He then told me what it was in a hushed voice, hardly above a whisper. "It's too heavy." Honestly, this was the truth. The weight of the crystals mixed with them building up near my joints did make it harder to move. Why would I need to be agile? To run away? No, I took this form to fight. The only one who looks like they're running away is you. I deeply regretted saying that. I impugned upon his pride. Now he would come at me with full force, and that's exactly what he did. With a fierce battle cry, he came down upon me. I blocked his attack with my lance and pushed him away. His speed was beyond mine currently. He had that right. He was running circles around me compared to my speed and heft. I caught his blade again, but his strength kept pushing me back. With a powerful swing of his blade, he struck me, cracking my armor. "Put on as much crystal as you want. It won't stop me from getting to your blood." I was not doing well. Endurance, strength, technique, battle IQ, he was my superior in every way. This wasn't going well for me at all. I really, truly only did have one chance, my Rasen rifle. I began to reform the crystals around my arms, turning them into long, thick gauntlets. I didn't want him to know what I had planned though, so I continued fighting with these, hoping to trick him into thinking they were some new melee weapon. After a time, I began to form Rasengan in my hands within the gauntlets. I would enter Sage mode after calling back my meditating shadow clone. For a moment, my strength increased, and I managed to push him back some. Surely he thought this was my secret weapon. I hope he did. That way he would lower his guard. I pushed him back, channeling some of my extra chakra to repairing and maintaining the structure of the rifle itself. If I just kept beating it down, it would lose potency, but I didn't need a tailed beast killer, just a Hidan killer. Just as I did so, he managed to break through my shell and wound me. He pulled his scythe back and licked up my blood. With a smile, he cut the palm of his hand. I knew I didn't have much time. I would merge my two crystals together and get down to one knee. While I didn't have much time, this was good, as it meant he still had to stand still to draw out his circle. I just needed to finish this before he could draw it. I pushed as much chakra into the Rasen rifle as possible. I felt all of my chakra, save a small reserve, enter it. They glowed brightly, so much that I could barely see. I let out a battle cry as the light filled the forest around us. Nearby, even Kakuzu and Naruto stopped battling to notice the intense glow. With a roar, I poured my very soul into the blast. "This is it," I shouted. "My final flash, my last glow, my bright burn. If I die, don't let anyone say I didn't try." "Hidan," I shouted. He stared at me. "Are you a man of faith?" I asked him. He looked at me with a smile. I then stared through my brow. "I challenge you and your god right now. If he's so great, then your immortality will shrug this off and he'll protect you, yeah?" Hidan's brow furrowed. "You dare impugn upon the might and power of Jashin?" "Please take the bait," I whispered inside myself. Hidan beat his chest. "My god is superior to anything you can throw at me. My immortality is infinite." I smiled. "Then hold still." My blast charged with a battle cry. I then released it all at once. Hidan ripped his other sleeve off to take it to the chest to prove his superiority. But the thing was, this was all a ruse. I knew that he was immortal, but I also knew this. He had little to no regeneration. I saw him lose his head once, and he had to sew it back on instead of growing a new one. Therefore, if I amputated every cell in his body, whether he lived or not would be inconsequential, as he'd be totally neutralized. As the blast hit him, he cried to Jashin to prove the might of his immortality, and laughed as the blast ate away at his body. But as he stood there, he realized that he was being completely erased, down to his very cells. "Even if my body's blown apart, my chakra is eternal," he shouted. "I don't care. Unless a ghost can actively fight in a war, I'd call you dead." Hidan realized the mistake he had made. His zeal for Jashin had just made him useless to the Akatsuki. Living, maybe. Useful, no. He would live as a disembodied red mist for eternity. That is, if even a red mist remained. The blast flew away with the force of an atomic weapon, bending trees like the winds of a Category 5 hurricane. The trees bent back, snapped, and seared in the heat, with a vacuum being left behind as even the oxygen and nitrogen atoms in the very air were eaten up, releasing along with my blast even more energy. The blast flew back and struck a mountain, passing through it, leaving behind a hole the shape and size of the blast. As the technique ended, I fell to my knees, no longer possessing any chakra to use. I looked down at my hands, blackened and charred, burned and steaming. My fingers twitched from the force of what I had done. My eyes were still adjusting from it. I was blinded by my own technique. All I saw was a big bright spot that completely took over my eyes, not even leaving any peripheral vision. I had no way of knowing if I had succeeded. I spoke. "Tell me, Hidan, did your god save you?" I heard only silence. I thought so. I proceeded to fall upon my side, passing out. I was unconscious for a while, until being transported back to Konoha General. Sakura herself tended to my wounds. My eyesight returned on its own, the flash only causing temporary blindness. My chakra reserves were also given a transfusion to help me get back on my feet. My arms were deeply seared, but Sakura's technique over the course of the next few days really fixed it up. When my eyesight returned, I watched her as she healed my hands, noticing that she was wearing both a blue and pink pendant around her neck. "You kept Sasuke's too?" I asked. She nodded. "I'll return it to him when he gets back." It had been a while since I'd thought about it. If he comes back to Konoha, what will happen? He's a wanted criminal. His escape has caused the death of many shinobi. "I don't think it's impossible," Sakura said. I was confused. Why? Sakura then dropped some big news on me. "When you were training, we received word that Sasuke had killed Orochimaru." I was shocked. "Killed Orochimaru?" She nodded. I thought about it. Wow, he must be powerful now. I doubt I could stop him at all. Sakura laughed. "Did you not see what you pulled off today? That was a village buster technique. I think you could be even more dangerous than Sasuke." I laughed cautiously. "Yeah." Sakura then told me how she meant to tell me earlier that my technique was considered a kinjutsu due to the self-destructive nature of it. It could burn and blind myself and any allies nearby if used incorrectly. Despite that, I was already finding ways to make use of it. A thinner barrel, more condensed chakra. All in all, I had taken a Ken into that fight when all I really needed was a Glock in most cases, so the concept of it being labeled as a kinjutsu seemed extreme. That variant at least. Depending on the target, I might be able to do more than just nuke something. I could turn it into a real sniper rifle if I calibrated the technique correctly. Finally finding my hands returning to normal, she told me to be careful moving forward. She had used my body's own cellular division to reform my skin and replace the dead cells, but she told me that the more I replaced dead cells, the lower my life expectancy would become. She told me to make it a real break glass in case of emergency technique, to which I heartily agreed. I highly doubted I'd need mountain killer level techniques for every shinobi I met. I'd proceed to make my way out and head home to rest for some time and think about it. For the first time in a while, I got to sleep in my own bed. Asuma had been avenged, and while I had just killed a man, I seemed to be okay with it. I realized a fundamental truth about pacifism. Pacifism was a trait I had always held, to do no real harm, to not kill, but it was flawed. A true pacifist was someone who realized what their pacifism was for, and for me, my control over my power was to preserve life. But if someone was an active threat to the lives of others, and if no other options were available, violence was an acceptable answer. I felt bad saying that, but justice and judgment came in many forms, and while I was truly in no position to judge any one person, if it came down to one person against 1,000, I would have to choose the 1,000. That was one of the tough choices one needed to make in the darkness of the shinobi world. I had to be strong. Strong enough to be gentle, yet tough enough to be dependable. Basically, I needed to be like my childhood hero, Optimus Prime. Not the Bayverse one, he's a psycho, but my point remained. This was how I processed this information. I simply had to tell myself that I didn't do anything wrong. Maybe I had, maybe I hadn't. I couldn't know for certain, but I knew my intentions, and I simply had to believe that I made a good choice killing Hidan. I cast up my cares to the one who cared most and tried to sleep. The next day, I awakened to someone pounding at my door. Stumbling out of bed, I made it out and opened it. On the other side, I saw Naruto standing there. "What is it?" I asked. He began talking so fast I couldn't understand him. "Calm down, Naruto. Slow down and just tell me what you need to tell me." Naruto took a deep breath. "We got a lead on Sasuke. He's looking for his brother right now. We know the general location." My eyes widened. I grabbed my flak jacket and my kunai holster and raced out the door. Naruto led me to Tsunade's office where a bunch of other shinobi were gathered. She welcomed me to the briefing and continued. She told us that the area near the Uchiha hideout was where Itachi had been spotted, and that Sasuke had been seen a good few miles out en route to his location. She surmised that if we were fast enough, we might intercept. She said that teams would search the surrounding area for any sign of Sasuke, and so that's exactly what we did. We raced through the forest, searching for Sasuke and his team, but we didn't get very far. That was until we both were caught by Itachi. Itachi looked at us. We both stopped and readied for battle. "Where's Sasuke?" Naruto asked. Itachi didn't speak or move. I then spoke. "Be honest with us. Are you even the real Itachi?" Itachi looked at us. Perceptive. I like that. He smiled for a moment before returning to a more somber and serious face. "Let me ask you, what does Sasuke mean to you?" "He means the world to us," Naruto said. "Does he? What would you do to have him back?" "Anything," Naruto and I said in unison. Itachi shook his head. "Sadly, I don't believe you. What are you going to do if he turns on the village?" "I won't let him destroy Konoha," Naruto said. "Then you'll kill him?" Itachi asked. I looked at Naruto, and Naruto shook his head. "I would stop him and save Konoha, and then I'd save Sasuke too." Itachi smiled. "I like you." Suddenly, a crow flew down and lodged itself in Naruto's mouth. I gripped at its feet to try and pull it out, but it burrowed into his throat deeper before I could even get a grasp on it. "What did you do?" I shouted at Itachi, forming a miniature crystal Rasen rifle and pointing it at him. I gave him something that will help him make use of what he promised to do. Farewell. Wait! Before I could finish my words, Itachi was gone. "We must be close," Naruto said as he cleared his throat after getting fed a chicken McNugget against his will. "Let's get going." We continued heading toward the Uchiha hideout, but were stopped by a masked man and a black and white being who refused to let us go any further. I formed a Rasen pistol in my hand and trained it on the masked man. "Ooh, shiny," he said as I readied my weapon. "Get out of our way. I don't want to use it against you," I told him. "And what if I said no?" the masked man asked. "Then I'll use this to make you get out of our way." "We won't let you hurt Sasuke," Naruto said. The masked man laughed. "Hurt Sasuke? Why would I do that? I simply wish to help Sasuke realize his goals, to get revenge on the ones responsible for killing his clan. All those responsible." Realizing that he was going to turn Sasuke against Konoha, I let off a shot in the man's direction. He caught it, however, in a strange swirling vortex, some space-time ninjutsu. He then released said jutsu at me from behind. Struck in the back by my own technique, I was sent flying forward, where the masked man would jump toward me, hitting me with some sort of lariat or clothesline or something. definitely one of them wrestling moves. That being said, I was too disoriented to care about which it was. All I knew was that my back was burning, my collarbone felt broken, and now I flew into the bark of a tree, scraping my skin up before falling all the way down on my chest, reverberating through my ribs, likely cracking or breaking them, bubbling up through my organs. As I laid there, I tried to gauge the damage, but I couldn't focus enough to think what could be wrong, which itself was a sign of an issue. "Ethan!" Naruto shouted. I don't know what happened, but I heard someone else scream "bastard," yell, and then a thump beside me as Naruto fell over as well. Looking over, I wheezed as I turned out of my back. Looking at the tree above, I raised my arm and fired a blast, shredding the limb they were standing on. Of course, it didn't do anything but cause them a minor issue. That's when I realized my mistake. Gravity would pull the heavy limb back down to Earth, and currently I was laying between it and the Earth, so I was about to get struck by the most widow of all widowmakers. That was until Sakura came through and knocked it out of the way. She looked down at me. "You okay?" I smiled. "Am I about to be in the hospital again?" She smiled a little back and nodded. At about that time, the skies darkened and a loud peal of thunder echoed through the area. After that, we didn't see the masked man or the strange black and white creature. "Sasuke's at the Uchiha hideout," I said. Sakura told over the radio where to go. I told her that she should go too. Unable to resist, she ran after Sasuke to get him and called in medical into our location. Sadly, they never found Sasuke, only the corpse of Itachi, already lacking eyes. It was a letdown indeed, and knowing Sasuke wasn't there, I knew it could only mean one thing. The Akatsuki had taken him, and sooner rather than later, he would target Konoha. And that's the end of this chapter. We're getting really close to the end now. I can see the finish line on the horizon. One more chapter should be all it takes to wrap up this extra long series. I hope you're enjoying this as much as I am. I'm trying to find a fine line between not getting too OP and not being too nerfed. I hope I found a proper place. Between the constant hospital trips and the full power mountain level feat, I think that's understandable, right? Anyway, I want to hear your opinions on Ethan's growth throughout the story. Let me know what you think in the comments below. We love to hear from you. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to be notified when more videos like this drop. And while you wait for those, check out these other great videos. Until next time, peace.